Hi everybody, this is Dr. L coming at you. This is Bagheera, who does not want to let me work when the computer's out, so he's going to hang out with us while we talk about the compound sentence. Hopefully it'll be nice and quick, because now that you understand the simple sentence, the compound sentence is just about stringing the simple sentence together. Instead of putting a period, you combine them with either a comma conjunction or a semicolon. As always, we'll be working from the little exercises, will be from the College English Workbook and Reader with a theme on disability. So real quick, let's look at this text here. The compound sentence, all it does is join simple sentences instead of putting periods between them. So for example, let's talk about Bagheera, my cat. My cat eats a lot. He is gaining weight. Those are two simple sentences. Again, always find the verb first so that you know what you're looking at. Here the verb is eats. Who or what eats a lot? The subject is cat. We have a subject and verb that can stand on its own. That means we're looking at a simple sentence, in other words, an independent clause. Same with the second one. He is gaining weight. Is the verb, he is the subject, and it can stand on its own. So we have two simple sentences here, and we put a period after a simple sentence. Now, if you don't want all of your writing to just be super choppy, simple sentences, because it's very staccato. My cat eats a lot. He is gaining weight. What you can do is either, in order to make it a compound sentence, you join them with a comma conjunction. These conjunctions are called coordinating conjunctions in compound sentences. There are only 7 of them. There are only 7. Light up. There are only 7 coordinating conjunctions, and we remember them with the acronym FANBOYS. FANBOYS stands for for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Okay, so for example, if I want to join my two simple sentences up here, if I want to turn them into a compound sentence with a comma conjunction, I would write, my cat eats, eats a lot, comma, and then I pick a conjunction, so he is gaining weight. You see? So that's about you, Bagheera. So that is one of the ways to do this, just with a comma conjunction. Now the error that can happen in a compound sentence is if, for example, you forget this comma with the conjunction. You must always have the comma with the conjunction in between independent clauses. This, if I forgot the comma, let's just pretend I'm just going to delete it. This is called a run-on, because I forgot the comma with the conjunction. If, however, I put the comma but not the conjunction, that's called a comma splice. So those are the two errors that can happen, right? Of course, the other error that can happen is the same error that happens in the simple sentence, which is called a fragment. Remember that a fragment is either missing the subject, missing the verb, missing both, or it can't stand on its own, which means it does have a subject and a verb, but it's a dependent clause and it can't stand on its own. So let me take you back to this sentence. So here we have a comma splice, right? We must have a comma conjunction. My cat eats a lot, so he is gaining weight. If I wrote let's say, eats a lot with no subject, that would be a fragment because it's missing the verb, right? Or if I wrote since, that would subordinate the clause. Since my cat eats a lot, comma conjunction, right? He is gaining weight. That is a dependent clause, which is a fragment. You just have to have perfect simple sentences, just as if you were writing simple sentences, on both sides of the comma conjunction. My cat eats a lot, he is gaining weight, and all that's in between them is a comma conjunction. Now, if you don't want that much space, it has a nice kind of wave to it, right? The comma conjunction compound sentence gives it a little more space. It's nice and flowy. But if you want it to sound a little heavier, right, have a little less space, then the only other way to do a compound sentence is to use a semicolon instead of a comma conjunction. So that's number 2 here. The second way to bring together independent clauses into a compound sentence is simply to place a semicolon between them rather than a comma conjunction. So here in this example, instead of rewriting it all, since my cat's on my lap, look, boom, semicolon. My cat eats a lot. He is gaining weight. That is a perfect compound sentence. Remember, it has the verb and the subject on both sides. He is on this side, and cat eats is on this side. Subject, verb, subject, verb. Now, it wouldn't be a compound sentence if it didn't have subjects and verbs on both sides. So let me show you how this could be mistaken for a simple sentence. Watch this. So if I just wrote, my cat eats a lot and is gaining weight. Here we have two verbs, is and eats. Who or what eats a lot and is gaining weight? The cat is the subject. So here we have the subject cat, one subject, with two verbs. This is a simple sentence. That's why you don't put a comma before the and here, because it's just a simple sentence. Now what happens is, if I add the subject to that second side, my cat eats a lot and he is gaining weight, now we're looking at a run-on. Because what's missing? The comma. You must have the comma with the conjunction when you have simple sentences, subject, verb, on both sides. Okay, so let me fix this error. Let me put my comma with my conjunction. My cat eats a lot and he is gaining weight, or so he is gaining weight. Okay, so let's look at, here are your errors, by the way. Remember what a fragment is. That can happen in simple sentences as well. A comma splice is when you put the comma but not the conjunction. It's an error. Or a run-on in a compound sentence is when you forget the conjunction. The comma with the conjunction. Okay, so if you look at exercise 2 on it's right around page 35. Some of you have ebooks, some of you might have older editions, but right around page 35 in the section on sentences with more than one clause, we have exercise 2. It says, please write I see next to the sentence if it is a simple sentence, or CD next to it if you believe it is a compound sentence. So this is where you're going to want to make sure that you have subjects and verbs on both sides. And of course, in this case, it will be perfectly punctuated. So that'll be a clue as well. There are no errors in exercise 2. So number 1, Vincent van Gogh was Dutch and grew up in the Netherlands. Find the verbs first, always, always. Was is a verb, and grew up is our second verb. And then we, don't do that. And then we say who or what was Dutch and grew up in the Netherlands. Vincent van Gogh is our subject. So we're looking at one subject with two verbs. Therefore, this is an IC, an independent clause, a simple sentence. Number 2, he suffered from psychotic episodes and drank too much alcohol. We have two verbs again, drank and suffered, and only one subject here on the left, he. Now, if this said he suffered from psychotic episodes and he drank too much alcohol, that would be a compound sentence, and we would have to put that comma with that conjunction, or else it would be a run-on. Okay, same with number 1, though. If it said Vincent van Gogh was Dutch and he grew up in the Netherlands, then that would be a compound sentence, and you'd have to have that comma conjunction in between those independent clauses. Does that make sense? As it stands, though, it doesn't say he grew up in our workbook, and therefore they are both simple sentences, one subject, two verbs. If you look at, somehow my numbers changed. He moved to London and he became very depressed. Here we have a subject and a verb, he became, and a subject and a verb, he moved. We have the perfect comma conjunction in between those independent clauses, which makes this a CD, which stands for a compound sentence. Same with, well, it's probably number 4 in the textbook. He painted many landscapes. You see how you could just put a period at the end of that because they're perfect simple sentences? Oh, my cat's getting bothered. What are you doing? And he also painted portraits. That's a perfect compound sentence. Okay, if we look at exercise 3 on page 36, this wants you to identify the errors in the compound sentences. So you know they're compound sentences. If there's a run-on, write RO. If there's a splice, write CS for comma splice. If there's a fragment, write frag. Or if it's correct, write C. So number 1, we all have different emotions and we have different ways of coping with them. Okay, have is our first verb. We is the subject. Can we all have different emotions stand on its own? Yes, it can. It's an independent clause. Now let's look at the second part. Have is the verb again, and we is the subject again, and that too can stand on its own. So what we need in between here is either a semicolon or a comma conjunction. What's missing? The comma. The comma's missing. This is a run-on. So you just write R-O. Oh, can't really reach it there. That's a run-on, my friends. Number 2, some people are depressed, others are not. Some people are depressed is our simple sentence. Others are not is another simple sentence. What's missing? Both the comma conjunction and the semicolon. You either put one or the other, or a period if you want simple sentences. But if you just put 2 independent clauses next to each other, that's a run-on. You must have either comma conjunction or a semicolon. Okay, so that too is a run-on. So I would put RO. If I wanted to fix it, I'd just make it easy and just put a semicolon there. You could put a comma conjunction too, but it might be an easier fix. Number 3, sadness is not the same as depression. There's your independent clause. And the next one, but they are often confused, is another independent clause. Again, it's missing the comma. That's a run-on. Okay, so you can see how if you're missing the comma with a conjunction, it's a run-on, or if you're missing any punctuation altogether between independent clauses, that is also a run-on. Number 4 then, one can be sad but not clinically depressed, comma, one can be clinically depressed but not sad. Can you tell what error that is? We have 2 independent clauses, and it just has a comma in between it. That, my friends, is a comma splice. So the only other thing to say about compound sentences is that you can have more than 2 independent clauses strung together. You can write 10 pages that's one single compound sentence by having simple sentence, comma conjunction, simple sentence. You choose semicolon or comma conjunction and just keep stringing them together. As long as they have subjects and verbs and can stand on their own, they're a simple sentence, and instead of putting periods in between them, you either choose a comma conjunction or a semicolon. That's what a compound sentence is, and those are what the errors are. Either a fragment, a run-on, which can also not have any punctuation between them at all, or a comma splice, which has the comma but no conjunction. So I hope this helps you. I'm going to go ahead and write the captions for it and try to get this posted for you. See you soon.